we seeing the presentation now?
Yes, sir. We're good to go.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Okay, so let's get going here. So we're talking about the Smith Manoeuvre today. You know, the questions are, how can we get ahead? You know, generally we Canadians, we have this two main financial goals, two priorities in our lives. One, we've got this big ugly mortgage, costs us a fortune. We want to, right? We want to get rid of that mortgage. Secondly, we want to start to be able to put money aside for our retirement. Right? We don't want to have to work for the rest of our lives. But we take this sequential approach to these two goals, right? And the decision on which one of these we attack first is made for us, not by us, because if we don't take our dollars and invest for our future, nobody cares. But if we don't take our dollars and if we don't make our mortgage payment, somebody certainly does care, right? So that's what we do. We focus on paying out this mortgage at the expense of not getting invested because we've got limited. And so we pour 25, 30, 40 years, and we're not investing during that period of time. And that can lead to some bad places. For many of you know someone who lives in a house free and clear, and they have to live off fixed income because they don't have any retirement savings. They don't have any income other than CPP. It's no fun. Or maybe in retirement, we're financially reliant on our children, or we're forced to downsize, or we're forced to take up a reverse mortgage. And next time you're in Costco, Walmart, McDonald's, have a look around and you'll start to notice, you'll start to see a lot of senior citizens working there, and they're there because they have to be, not because they want to be. Now, when we do talk to someone about, hey, how can I get ahead? How can I improve my net worth? What's the typical advice that we get? Well, hey, you got to invest more. You got to max out your registered contributions. You got to pay your mortgage more than just the regular mortgage payment. Prepay your mortgage. Reduce your consumer debt. And the common thread in all of these pieces of quote unquote advice is that they all require more money from you. But for many Canadians, there is little or no more money. So a traditional investment advisor is providing these pieces of advice. And what they're saying is you either have to go earn more money or you have to reduce your lifestyle. What can we do if there is no more money? Well, if we're a Canadian homeowner, we do have the ability to reduce our tax bill, to increase the efficiency of that debt repayment, to eliminate that expensive debt sooner, to invest found money. And there's only one solve this with no new money from your pockets, and that is the Smith Manoeuvre. Now, it's important to understand that this is a mortgage conversion strategy, okay? And by that, I mean we're taking debt and we're converting it from bad debt to good debt. A lot of people will ask, well, can I apply the Smith Manoeuvre to my rental properties? You don't need to apply the Smith Manoeuvre to the rental properties. It's already tax deductible debt, but your rental property can help massively. And we'll see that a bit later on. And three benefits of this strategy: you're going to reduce your tax bill, you're going to get rid of that expensive mortgage much, much quicker, and you're going to enjoy compound growth. And these benefits start now. They occur simultaneously. They improve exponentially each and every year, and no new cash is required from the homeowner. We're using cash that you're already outlaying. We're going to maximize the mortgage debt that you already have in place, and it's just a one-time restructuring of your existing financial affairs. And maybe not even that. You might be set up for it from a financing perspective and just not realize it. That's why it's so important to talk to a Smith Manoeuvre certified professional. So we got to talk about debt. There are two types of debt, right? There's non-deductible debt and there's tax-deductible debt. Non-deductible debt is relatively expensive, and it's taken on to acquire depreciating assets. And by expensive, I mean, if you look at your statement and says you're paying 6% for this debt, that's actually what you're paying, 6%. And when I say depreciating assets, I mean, I'm borrowing to consume. That means I'm borrowing to buy a car, buy clothing, buy toys, buy all these different things which depreciate in value over time. That car is worth $50,000. The day after I buy it, it's worth 45. After that, it's worth 40. So the value of these assets that we're buying with this borrowed money decline and disappear in value over time. And the debt is not tax deductible, so it's expensive. Tax deductible debt, however, is very different. It's relatively inexpensive, and it's taken on to acquire appreciating assets. And by inexpensive, I mean, if your mortgage statement or your bank statement, whatever it is, says you are paying 6% for that money, if you're at the 50% marginal tax rate, that only actually costs you 3%. So it's inexpensive, and it's inexpensive. I get the benefit of this cheap debt only because I'm buying an asset which has the likelihood of appreciating in value over time, investment assets. So they're very, very different types of debt. And the wealthy understand this very, very well. It's one of the main reasons that they're wealthy. Now, the exception to this rule of non-deductible debt and tax-deductible debt is our house. We can reasonably expect it to appreciate in value over time, which it has. We take a long, we're looking at the past year or so, maybe it's softened, but over time, we can expect the value of our home to appreciate. However, it has the characteristic of non-deductible debt because the tax is not deductible. The interest is not deductible on that mortgage. So it's relatively expensive debt, but we've got a solution to that problem. But we have to take action. We have to do something about this. We need to realize that our mortgage is one of our biggest investment opportunities that we have. But we need to invest our home equity now rather than consume it later. And in order to convert our non-tax deductible mortgage to a tax deductible mortgage, we need what's called a readvanceable mortgage. And this is where someone like Toma, who is a Smith Manoeuvre certified professional mortgage broker, comes in to assist. So this is a typical mortgage. This is what many people think when they think of a mortgage. This is what they see. They see one big chunk of debt, in this case, $500,000 mortgage. All of it is non-deductible. All of this debt is not tax deductible. But a readvanceable mortgage looks like this. We've got this little umbrella here, just to encompass the fact that it's a single mortgage, but it's got two components to it. We've got that same $500,000 of non-deductible debt, but the readvanceable mortgage has a HELOC attached to it, home equity line of credit. Now, not all readvanceable mortgages look the same. If we're going to do a little diagram here, not all of them operate the same, function the same. That's why, again, someone like an SMCP is so important. They understand which particular readvanceable mortgage is going to be best for your particular situation. But they function the same. The principle is the same. And that is, whenever I pay anything down on this mortgage side, what we think of as a mortgage, $500,000 non-deductible debt, when I make a payment against that, the limit on that line of credit increases dollar for dollar. And I can do whatever I want with that money that I can now access. But the principle is, it goes down, I'm able to get back at it on this line of credit side. So how the Smith Manoeuvre operates is on a monthly basis. We're going to make the regular monthly mortgage payment that you're already making. Right? Whether you're doing the Smith Manoeuvre or not, you've got a mortgage payment. You continue to make that mortgage payment. But as that principal reduces on that mortgage debt, the line of credit limit increases dollar for dollar. We pull that out and we get it invested. And we repeat this every month. Pay it down, pull it back out to invest. Now, on an annual basis, because we're generating tax deductions by pulling that money out to invest each month, we get a tax refund at the end of the year. We take that tax refund that we otherwise would not have received if we're not implementing the strategy. We take those dollars and we prepay that mortgage above and beyond the regular mortgage payment for that month. When we get that refund, we make an extra payment against that mortgage. And again, that line of credit limit increases dollar for dollar. So we can take that out and invest it too. Now, the fundamental principle on which all of this relies is the fact that if you borrow to invest with the reasonable expectation of generating income, you can deduct the interest on that borrowing. Okay, but you have to use that borrowing for the right uses. So here's an example. We've got a mortgage payment of $2,200 in this case. Most of this is going to interest. $1,260 of that $2,200 goes to interest. It's non-deductible. It's costly. That is the price we pay for borrowing that money from the bank to buy the house. However, some of that does reduce principal, in this case, $940. So we see $500,000 balance go down to $499,060. So that goes down. The line of credit side of the mortgage recognizes that that principal is being reduced by $940, so it increases its limit by $940. And we can pull that out. We can pull that out and do anything we wish with it. You know, a lot of Canadians, maybe they have a readvanceable mortgage. They don't really understand what it is. They don't know why their broker or their banker put them into it. but each month they see that their line of credit limit increases. Oh, fantastic. I got an extra $940 I can borrow. That works out to the payment on a BMW 5 Series. Fantastic. I'm going to go buy myself a car. I'm going to go on vacation. I'm going to go to Vegas, have a trip, whatever the case may be. And all they're doing in this case is paying down expensive non-deductible debt on one side and borrowing expensive non-deductible debt on the other side to acquire assets which are going to depreciate and disappear in value. So what we do with this available credit each month is very, very important. We're going to invest it with a reasonable expectation of generating income. So each month we pay it down, we pull it back out to invest. On an annual basis, we take our tax relief, prepay, pull that out to invest as well. And pretty soon we have fully converted our mortgage. All this debt on the other side of the mortgage now, on the HELOC side, is 100% tax deductible. We've managed to get rid of the non-deductible debt faster because of this tax relief that we've enjoyed each year. And we're taking advantage of compound growth because each and every month we've been pulling out to invest. We have to remember that this $500,000 on this side of the mortgage here is offset by an investment portfolio that we're gonna have a look at pretty soon. So the cycle of benefits here, the Smith Maneuver converts your 100% non-deductible mortgage to 100% tax deductible debt. Each month you're generating valuable and increasing tax deductions. You're able to eliminate your expensive mortgage in record time, and each month you're able to invest money you wouldn't otherwise have available. It happens now, it all happens simultaneously and requires no extra cash from you on a monthly basis. Now, this is something that I frequently get. All right, Smith, before I'm doing the Smith Maneuver, I've got a mortgage payment. After I'm doing the Smith Maneuver, I still have a mortgage payment, but I also have a balance on that line of credit, which is increasing each and every month. And you're telling me no additional cash is required. How can that be if I've still got the mortgage payment like I did before, but now I also have a balance on that line of credit I have to service the interest on each month? How can no additional cash be required from my pocket? And the answer lies in the increasing efficiency of the regular mortgage payment. So in this little chart here, we've got a mortgage that starts at $400,000. The very first month, period one here, I make my mortgage payment, my very first mortgage payment, $2,214. Out of that, $1,486 goes to interest, non-deductible interest, goes to the bank, lent me the money, but $728 in this case does reduce principal. And because that went down on one side of the mortgage, I'm able to access it again on the other side of the mortgage, the HELOC side. So I pull that $728 out and I get it invested. The next month, I make the constant payment of $2,214, but a little bit less goes to interest. And if it's a constant payment, less is going to interest. That means more is going to principal. So $730 is reduced on that balance of the mortgage. I can access that $730. The first thing that happens is the lender is going to want to take their interest on the first month's borrowing of $728. And 730 minus $2 interest, if my math works out, leaves me $728 to invest. Third month, same thing, less to interest, more to principal. Pull out the 733. A little bit more goes to interest this month because I got to service the borrowing on the first 2 months, leaving again $728 to invest. And so that's how this continues. Now, depending on interest rates, on the differentials on the two sides of the mortgage and all of these sorts of things, there may be adjustments over the course of time as to how much I have to invest each month. Maybe I start out with 728, a little while later, maybe 6 months, a year later, I got to reduce it to 725. Maybe I get to increase it to 735. But the principle is that the increasing efficiency of this regular mortgage payment, the fact that less and less is going to interest each and every month off a constant payment, means more and more is able to get pulled out, which means more and more is able to go service the increasing interest expense on that line of credit, leaving generally a constant amount to invest each month. So what are the risks? Nothing worth doing is without risk. We're using someone else's money. Okay, we're borrowing to invest in this case from that HELOC. This is the mortgage lender's money. There's rate risk. When we have a mortgage, we're already exposed to rate risk to some degree or another. But now we've got at least one more component to that mortgage, which is also has a rate applied to it. We're getting invested. Market risk. Markets go up and down. Rates go up and down. But the very, very long-term nature of this strategy really flattens those risk curves, the rate curve and the market curve. Now, we know that rates go up and down. We know that markets go up and down. As soon as rates and markets stop going up and down, that's when we have a problem in this world, right? But we get into the strategy understanding that it's robust enough to cover the fact that rates are going to go up, rates are going to go down. Markets are going to go up, markets are going to go down. We're not getting invested for 6 months or 5 years here. This is long term. And so that mitigates these risks. Investment risk, kind of like market risk, but it's more detailed in the fact that what am I actually investing in? I'm not just investing in the markets, I'm investing in a particular mutual fund or a stock. So you have to know, you have to be comfortable with what you're investing in. Regulatory risk. The government can change the rules at any time, and they do. But again, the fundamental principle on which this strategy relies is the fact that if we borrow to invest, we can deduct the interest. And if the government ever said, okay, no longer can we Canadians deduct interest on money we borrow to invest, they wouldn't be in power very long, methinks, right? The wealthy take advantage of this principle of deducting interest on investment monies. Corporations, right? And now the average Canadian can as well. So regulatory risk is somewhat minimal. CRA risk. What we need to do to mitigate this is have a careful process of when we implement the strategy, making sure we understand and can show, if anybody ever does ask, where the money came from, where it went. So records, keeping records is very important. Perhaps one of the biggest ones is behavioral risk. We know that we're getting invested. Rates go up, rates go down. When rates are up, markets go up, markets go down. When markets go up, people tend to start throwing money into the market. Hey, things are looking great, so they're buying at the top. And then markets go down, they freak out, and they start selling, right? So this is where someone like Tracey, who is an SMCP investment advisor, comes into play. She's as much as a psychologist as anything else here, right? Cautioning her clients, her investors, hey, this is how the markets work. This is how the world works. Don't panic. Maybe now is a good time to buy more. So we need to rely on people who understand more about investing in behavioral risk than we do ourselves. That's why it's so important to use a professional. So what's the strategy worth? Well, for the typical Canadian homeowner, what we just looked at was the plain Jane Smith maneuver. And all that is using the mortgage payment that you're already making anyways to get invested each month, generate tax deductions, and generate the ability to get rid of that mortgage faster through that tax relief. And that's worth, we're seeing typically $300,000 to $400,000 of net worth improvement over a typical 25-year amortization period. $300,000 to $400,000 net worth improvement with no additional cash coming out of anyone's pocket, right? That's significant. Plus, we're taking about 2 or 3 years off the amortization of that mortgage. So we're out of it faster, that non-deductible debt. But we got a number of accelerators we'll talk about, and these can improve the results close to $1 million, over $1 million net worth improvement, and sometimes well under 10 years. That mortgage debt, which you thought you were going to have for 25 years, is gone in 6, 7, 8 years. So these accelerators, the cash flow diversion, debt swap, the drip, prime the pump, and cash flow down. So the cash flow diversion accelerator. Here we've got our readvanceable mortgage. Thank you, Toma. You did a great job getting me the right type of mortgage for this strategy. Now I still have a mortgage payment. Doing the strategy or not, I've got the debt, I've got a payment. But what the cash flow diversion accelerator entails is, let's say that each month I have my income gets deposited into my personal checking account. Now, maybe I'm one of the fortunate few Canadians who can afford to invest $400 a month. I have gone to my investment company and I said, come into my bank account each month and take $400, get it invested. I don't even want to know you've come in. Don't even ask me for it. Just take it, get it invested. Great. I'm doing something. I'm increasing my net worth. But there's a better way, because what I can do is, after my income comes in, I can first take that $400, make a prepayment against my mortgage above and beyond the regular mortgage payment. We're not looking at that here. This is extra $400, and every penny of that goes against principal. So this principal goes down by $400. That line of credit limit opens up by $400, and then I pull it out and get invested. I'm still investing $400 each and every month. But before I do that, I'm first getting rid of my non-deductible mortgage debt much faster. I'm starting to generate significant tax deductions, which helps me in April. The debt swap. let's say that $400 a month to date has generated, well, has allowed me to accrue $10,000 worth of investments. Let's just call them mutual funds. I can have a look at this and say, look, does it make sense to redeem these $10,000 worth of investments from a tax perspective? And if it does make sense, it's not too onerous, I can sell my mutual funds that are worth $10,000. I now have cash in my hand of $10,000 and I prepay my mortgage. 10,000, that's a big chunk. And because this goes down by 10,000, the line of credit opens up by 10,000. I pull it out and then I get invested again. I can buy the exact same investment I sold a week earlier, or I can buy a different investment. There's certain things to look out for, which Tracey helps with. But I'm still invested by $10,000, but I've reduced my bad debt by $10,000 and increased my good debt by $10,000. So my debt has also stayed the same as it was a week ago. I had $500,000 of debt over here, all of it bad. Now I've only got $490 of bad debt, and I've got $10,000 of good debt. Does fantastic things for my tax bill. And I can also do this with cash. You know, the age-old discussion that goes on in one's head at Christmas time when you get your bonus. All right, I got $10,000 bonus. Fantastic. What do I do with this? Do I pay my mortgage down or do I invest it? For me, the wise thing to do is be to buy my wife something really, really nice. But a lot of people, you know, they might say, okay, I want to do one or the other here. What is it? And the answer is they can do both. They can take that cash, prepay their mortgage, pull it out, and then get it invested. The drip accelerator, my investment portfolio, you know, depending on what you're invested in, you may be able to receive dividends either in cash or have them automatically reinvested. And what a lot of people do is they say, well, I don't want to see my $300 dividends come to me into my bank account because I'll probably just spend them. So what I want is I want my dividends to be automatically reinvested. So the $300 in dividends comes out, goes right back in to buy me more shares of the stock or units of the mutual fund, whatever it is. But I can say, hey, I do want to see those dividends now, because when I receive the cash from the dividends, I can prepay my mortgage and then get back at it. And then I can buy the exact same shares or units in the investment that sent out those dividends in the first place, or a different investment. But we're speeding up the elimination of that bad debt and accruing tax deductible debt at a faster rate, and we're still invested by that $300. Now, prime the pump. So I've got, I want to do the Smith Maneuver. I talked to Toma and he gets me the right type of mortgage. But in order to do that, get me out of the mortgage that doesn't work and into the one that does, I first need an appraisal on my house. Let's say that comes in at $625. Mortgage lenders with readvanceable mortgages won't lend over 80%, a functional readvanceable mortgage. They won't lend over 80% loan to value. That's the maximum. So in this case, 80% of 625 is 500,000. So that's the maximum loan I can get from this new lender. Well, that's fine for my purposes because that's actually the mortgage balance that I have currently that doesn't work for the Smith Maneuver. So once Toma gets me this mortgage, that new mortgage pays out the old mortgage. So that $500,000 of non-deductible mortgage debt resides here. Because it's a readvanceable mortgage, I have a line of credit attached to it. But because I've borrowed every penny that they're willing to lend me, I don't have any immediately available credit over here. I would start to do the plain Jane Smith Maneuver, maybe with one of the two or the accelerators that we looked at previously. But what happens if the appraisal comes back at $850,000? Well, the lender's willing to lend me a total of $680,000 at 80% loan to value. But I only need $500,000 to pay out my old mortgage. So now I've got that $500,000 mortgage over here, but they're willing to lend me a total of $680,000, which means they're giving me $180,000 of immediately available credit on that line of credit the day that my mortgage gets registered. Now, we're ignoring the 65% HELOC rule for sake of explanation here. But this $180,000 that I have available to me, I can do anything with it. I can pull that out. I can buy a brand new Porsche. I can pull that out, go around the world a few times. I can pull that cash out and I can throw it in the fireplace and burn it. You know, the lender doesn't care. They've got the house as security. They're very comfortable. But what I do with this available equity is very, very important. Now, I don't have to use any of it. I don't have to use some. I can use all of it. I can use some of it. I can use none of it. That's up to me in a discussion with, say, Tracey Lundell here, Smith Manoeuvre investment advisor. what do I want to do, if anything, with this $180,000? Well, if I do use any of this, I want to invest it in something that's going to generate tax deductible debt on the borrowed money there. I can invest in security, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. I can invest it in a new business. Maybe I use it as a down payment for investment property, private lending, mix, REITs. There's a whole wide universe of different investments that I could use with this money. I could invest in with this money, but I want to make sure that it's a tax deductible use. Now, let's just say I took that available $180,000 and I used it to buy investment property. I now have my first rental property. I have the ability to implement the cash flow down at this point. Whether I already have a rental property or a new rental property, maybe it's my second, maybe I've got a home-based business. I knit sweaters and sell them on the internet, from my home. This relies on being a proprietorship, your business. So let's say I went and got a rental property. I find some renters, they start paying me $3,000 a month. And what typically happens when someone gets a rental property in Canada, they open up a bank account dedicated to that rental property. They'll take that $3,000 in rental receipts, deposit it into the proprietorship account, and then that money goes right back out because I've got expenses on that business. In this case, a rental property, I've got a mortgage on that rental property, I've got maintenance, I've got utilities. It costs me to run that business. And we're talking cash flow neutral here in this circumstance for ease of discussion here, but money comes in and money goes out. Well, if I choose to implement the cash flow down, that $3,000 I receive from my renters, I use that as a prepayment against my own mortgage. This is the house in which I live. I'm prepaying that mortgage in addition to the regular mortgage payment by my rental receipts of $3,000 in this case. And because that goes down by $3,000, that prepayment, I can borrow back that $3,000, and I do so, put that back into my bank account dedicated to my proprietorship, that rental property, and then I service the expenses on that property. So money in, money out, but first we're prepaying our mortgage by $3,000 each and every month. And Toma will tell you that if you're prepaying a mortgage by $3,000 a month, this is where we see a 25-year mortgage gone in 6-7 years. This is hugely powerful stuff. And the faster I'm paying this down, therefore, that means the faster I'm borrowing it back for deductible purposes. And the faster I'm accruing tax deductions, the bigger my tax refunds get each and every year, and they accelerate. It's very powerful stuff. So the Smith Maneuver cycle of benefits, again, each month you're able to invest money you wouldn't otherwise have available. You're generating valuable and increasing tax deductions. You're able to eliminate your expensive mortgage in record time. These benefits start now, they occur simultaneously, and no new cash from you is required. Now, does it work in today's environment? High inflation. When we look at inflation, we want to look at what the cost of doing nothing is. And, we talked earlier about the sequential approach to our financial affairs. First, pay down the mortgage, right? And a lot of people have grown up being told by people older and quote unquote wiser than themselves, hey, you want to be mortgage free by the time you hit retirement. What they're saying is you want to throw all your dollars at your mortgage to create all this equity in your home and earn 0% on it over time. In fact, less than 0%. If inflation's running at 6% and I got $100,000 of equity in my home, at the end of 12 months, that $100,000 is worth 6% less than at the beginning of the year. Now magnify that by $400,000 of equity, $800,000 of equity, and not 1 year, but 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. You're losing so much value. So it's more important than ever to put that equity to work rather than let it molder in your home. We're seeing higher rates these days than we have recently. And, I think what's appropriate to say is we're not seeing high rates, we're seeing higher rates. We had a period of extraordinarily low rates. Now rates have sort of returned to normal, what we had seen before, give or take. So rates aren't necessarily high, but they are higher. But we need to remember that the Smith Maneuver is very, very robust. The higher the interest rates are, the larger your tax relief is. The larger your tax relief, the more you have to prepay your mortgage each year. Therefore, the faster that mortgage disappears. Markets are down. We've seen some volatility, right? Do I want to invest now? Well, we know that the professional investors, they typically don't buy when markets are high and investments are expensive. They love it when markets come down. That's when they're buying. It's the household investor who is selling when markets are down. And we got to remember that on every side of a trade, when someone is selling, there's someone buying. So the non-professional investors are selling when markets are down. The professional investors are buying. And don't we want to act and behave like the professionals? You know, investing, I state here, is the only industry where sales scare the consumer, right? If my favorite pair of jeans go on sale for 15% off, I rush out and I buy as many pairs as I can. When my favorite stock, RBC, is on sale at 15% off, I say, no, I don't want to buy anymore, right? We do it backwards. We decidedly behave like non-professionals. So we need to train ourselves to act like the wealthy, behave like the professionals. Now, does a refinance make sense? Many of you watching this will say, well, I got my mortgage X number of years ago. I got a really, really low rate. I can't believe it. If I refi now before my term is up, I'm going to have a much higher rate. Does it make sense to do so? And sometimes it won't. Maybe you're going to be better off to wait another 2 years before you go from a 1.9 to a 5.4, right? When you're going to be exposed to that new rate anyways. But sometimes it might, you know, and there's an opportunity, and Toma can look at all this. There's an opportunity that maybe you're able to extend your amortization so that even with a higher rate, your actual mortgage payment dollar-wise will be maybe just a bit more, maybe the same, right? What about the penalty? Does it make sense to break your mortgage now and incur a penalty? Well, Toma will have a look and tell you how much that penalty, you can expect that penalty to be. But again, that can be rolled into the new mortgage. And the simple math that any mortgage broker can tell you is if you break your mortgage now, 3 years into your term, you got another 2 years left, and take the penalty hit, take the new rate, you're going to be plus or minus, right? It's math. And either it's going to make sense from a dollar perspective to break or it's not. But even if it doesn't make sense from that particular calculation to break your mortgage, maybe it does when you factor in the Smith maneuver, because if you don't break your mortgage now and you have the wrong type of mortgage, you're in the wrong mortgage for another 2 years until your term is up. That means 2 years of not getting invested $1,000 a month. That means 2 years of not acquiring those tax deductions. 2 years of foregone prepayments with that tax relief. So there's a lot to consider here, but again, your SMCPs can run that for you. We're going to have a quick demonstration of the Smith Man calculator here. Toma or Tracey, after I hit the play button, please do let me know if you can or cannot hear my voice, my recorded voice.
Okay, due to time constraints, this is going to be a very, very
Yep.
fast demonstration of Smith Man calculator. So once in, I'm going to give it a name, this scenario, and we're going to head to the calculator. We can enter various types of income. I'm going to throw in $150,000 of employment income. I've also got a rental property proprietorship, and it generates $36,000 in rental revenues per year. And it costs me $34,000 a year to service the expenses on that rental property. I'm also going to input that I have $30,000 of mutual funds invested. And I've also got a $10,000 emergency fund. And down here we can see my marginal tax rate is 45.8%. I'm going to go to the next sheet. I'm going to fill in my house value at $750,000. The mortgage balance on that is currently $450,000. The interest rate is 2.9%. The amortization defaults to 25 years. On the readvanceable line of credit side of things, I've got a prime rate of 2.45 and a premium of 0.5% for a total of 2.95%. Next, I'm going to go to the fund page where we start to see results. I can throw in whatever I project my investment to grow at on an annual basis. We'll leave it at 8%. This is saying the very first month's mortgage payment leaves me $769 to invest. I'm going to go ahead and invest that all. Here's where we start to see some results. Taxation improvement, total deductions over the amortization of the mortgage of $109,000, which lead to total in tax refunds of $50,000. No amortization improvement yet, we'll see that soon, but a net worth improvement of $388,000 already at this point. Now here I can adjust the amount that I accept from the lender. They're willing to lend a total of $600, but I can move that up or down and we can see the results change. I won't go into an explanation on this right now, but let's just say I only want to accept $550,000 from the lender. So we've seen a bit of improvement in the results. Here's where we'll see amortization improvement. If I apply my annual tax refunds as a monthly prepayment against that an annual prepayment against that mortgage, and also reborrow that to invest, we'll see amortization improvement and also net worth improvement here. 2.33 years saved off my non-deductible mortgage, net worth improvement up to $551. The debt swap accelerator, I've got $30,000 that I already inputted in mutual funds. I'm going to go ahead and debt swap that and watch the results here. The years saved and net worth improvement. There we go, 4.6 years saved, net worth improvement of $791,000. I'm not going to input any future lump sums. What I'm going to do is debt swap my emergency cash. I'm going to secure a line of credit, a personal line of credit that I'm only going to use for emergencies. Therefore, I can debt swap this cash. I can prepay my mortgage and then get it invested. And we're going to see further results here. Cash flow diversion. Let's say I have been investing $300 on a monthly basis. That's how I built up my $30,000 in mutual funds. So I'm going to go instead apply that as a prepayment each month and then reborrow it to invest. 5.42 and 869 goes to 8.42 and net worth improvement of $1.164 million. Cash flow dam accelerator. I previously entered my rental revenues and expenses, and that works out to $3,000 a month in revenues and expenses of $2,833. If I implement the cash flow dam accelerator, we're really going to want to watch this one here. Instead of saving 8.42 years off that mortgage at this point, I'm saving 18.25 years, which means my original 25-year amortized mortgage is going to be gone in 6.75 years. Dividend reinvestment plan accelerator, I won't go there at this moment. Prime the pump accelerator. Based on the numbers inputted, apart from that non-deductible mortgage debt when I refinance into a readvanceable mortgage, I've also got $100,000 of immediately available funds with which I can prime the pump. So I can withdraw some, all, or none of this if I wish, but if I do, I'm going to get this invested immediately. So if I pull $50,000 of this to prime the pump, then we'll watch the net worth improvement go from 1.3 to 1.7. Now I've saved 18.5 years off my mortgage. I've received total tax refunds over the course of the mortgage of $145,000. And again, instead of 25 years, that mortgage has gone in 6.5 years. So this net worth improvement, this is net worth improvement, meaning I've got an investment portfolio of $2.21 million offset by 100% tax-deductible investment loan of $484,000, leaves a net improvement of $1.726 million. And the next screen here, that just shows the graph. The green line descending at 25 years to the x-axis is a 25-year amortization. This blue line hitting $0 is the reduced amortization of my mortgage. The red line over here is my investment portfolio. The yellow line is my total debt. And then I can view and print a report, which is going to summarize the results. It's also going to give me my instructions for the monthly process of the Smith Manoeuvre based on my numbers. So there you go, a quick demonstration of the Smith Man calculator. I hope you enjoyed.
And back live now. As my father used to say, procrastination is the enemy of your financial success. Take action today. If you don't take action today, you're less likely to take it tomorrow. So there you go, folks. Yes, Smith Manoeuvre Certified Professional Accreditation Program. We are training financial professionals across the country. We're training mortgage brokers, investment advisors, accountants, realtors, insurance brokers. we're training up all of the financial professionals that, in my opinion, a Canadian should surround themselves with anyways, doing the strategy or not. So that Canadians have local Smith Manoeuvre certified professionals in all disciplines who are local to them. Please do not use any financial professionals who are not Smith Manoeuvre certified professionals. There is an incredible amount of misunderstanding out there amongst financial professionals, financial journalists. I periodically have to correct the Financial Post when they discuss the Smith Manoeuvre because they get it wrong. And certainly do not go to the internet for advice on the Smith Manoeuvre. It is a complete rat's nest. So avoid that at all costs. You have two Smith Manoeuvre certified professionals on this call. Toma looks after mortgage financing. Tracey takes care of the investment aspect. You've got two fantastic SMCPs who can take care of your needs here. They also know accountants, SMCP accountants. So please do reach out to Toma and Tracey, especially if you want to look at getting some of the items that we have on the website here. Master Your Mortgage for Financial Freedom. That's the book that Toma referenced I wrote. We've got the Smith Man Calculator. We've got a homeowner's course for it goes more in depth on the strategy than the book does. For those of you who really want to get into the nuts and bolts to really understand the strategy and what Toma and Tracey are doing for you. So there it is, folks. Stop the share and we're back.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Rob. No one does it better.
Well, I must apologize. I'm getting over a cold, and so I sound a bit croaky. I do realize that, but the information was there.
That time of the year for sure. I guess this is the time, Tracey, correct me if I'm wrong, if we're going to turn to the audience here for any kind of questions that may arise from this.
Yeah, that is right. And there have been a few questions that have come through. I've been trying to answer them as we've kind of gone through as well, but I thought that I would kind of bring it to the whole group's attention if you didn't get a chance. Hopefully you weren't reading the chat, because then you could be focusing on what was actually being said. But one of the questions was about that monthly interest you illustrated in your presentation from the line of credit. Based on my conversations with the SMCP accountants, the accredited accountants that look at it, you can actually service that interest from the line of credit itself. So if you hold back a little bit of that line of credit, it can help you make the payments. You're not taking it out of pocket. Is that correct?
Yeah, the increasing efficiency of the regular mortgage payment takes care of the, it's not an easy concept to get, but it does take care of the increasing interest expense there. Now, one slide that I didn't have on this, which I thought I did, and I apologize, is a slide that comes after the Smith Man Calculator, because I know that I was using a rate, and Toma probably said to himself, wait, what's going on here? You're using the 2.9% rate?
That's so 2021.
Yeah. So one thing I do want to make sure I explain is that I'm just having a quick look here, folks, on a different presentation. Yeah, here we go. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen here one more time, because there's probably a question on this somewhere in the chat, but I'm going to share my screen here and show you a comparison. So this normally comes after the calculator demonstration. And this is what we had. This is the results that you folks saw. $316,000 in tax deductions, reduced amortization 6.5 years, and net worth improvement of 1.7 million at 2.9% mortgage rate, 2.95% HELOC borrowing rate. But I also ran an analysis at 6% mortgage rate and 7.2 HELOC rate. And we look at the size of the improvement in tax deductions. That's our tax relief. Because that tax relief is so much higher, we're able to take many more months off the amortization of that mortgage. We see a decrease in the net worth improvement here, because the higher the rate, while the bigger the tax relief, the less we have to invest on a monthly basis. So we're out of that mortgage faster because of much more significant tax relief at more or less current rates, or maybe a bit higher than current. But this is just to show that the Smith maneuver works whether the rates are high or whether they're low. When rates are high, my tax relief is bigger. I have a little bit less to invest each month. When rates go down, I have a little bit less tax relief, but I have more to invest each month, which does good things for my net worth improvement. So it's very robust.
Yeah, and just to touch on that, Rob, just a little bit. I think what I don't want to have missed by certain folks is that what's being described as a scenario by which, you know, in the vacuum of someone having regular employment income and no other complications of self-employment, just to keep the conversation simple, is literally a tax refund from CRA because of the amount of interest that we will be applying for deductions for. So that's what's being alluded to in getting the refund from the CRA once you file for whatever the tax year is, getting a check, and then using the check to prepay the mortgage and losing my vocabulary, but continue the process, perpetuate the process.
Yeah.
And we haven't even factored in the dividend reinvestment plan, because that wasn't one of the accelerators that was used in the
That's right.
calculator, and that can actually have a really big effect.
Yeah, and I'll mention with
Mhm.
the drip accelerator, the drip accelerator doesn't really it does improve typically the net worth improvement,
Mhm.
but not to a great extent, because the forecasted growth rate of your investment portfolio, it applies it to the whole portfolio. So it's whether your dividends are staying in or coming out, the growth of that portfolio is going to be the same. Where it
Yeah.
provides advantage is getting rid of that non-deductible debt faster.
Right.
And the faster you're out of that non-deductible debt, the less you pay in non-deductible interest. Full stop.
Right. And with many investments, you actually get a dividend tax credit in addition to whether you take it out or not, like whether you reapply it to the mortgage or not. There's additional tax savings that can take place for that thing as well. A question that did pop up, and actually I hear this question a lot, so I would love to hear your answer on this. Is it wise to take money out of a tax-free savings account? If that's where I've been accumulating all of my savings, is it wise to take the funds out of the tax-free savings account, apply it as a prepayment on the mortgage? But obviously it can't go back into a tax-free savings account in order for that line of credit to be tax deductible. So I'm going to pose that question.
Well, the answer goes back to you, Tracey, who is
It
the
does.
investment advisor who would actually perform that calculation. Does it make sense if we're
Mhm.
assuming growth rate, tax-free growth over here, tax growth over here, marginal tax rates, all that stuff? I would say that more times than not, it does not make sense to pull money from your TFSA to prepay, pull it back out, and invest in non-registered account. Sometimes it may. That's a calculation
Yep.
that you're.
And I think it depends on what you're invested in within that TFSA. Like that's what I always look at right off the bat. It depends. Like some people just have savings accounts in their TFSA, and like that's actually not the best way to use it. So maybe there'd be some tax
Absolutely.
benefits to moving that. So
Yep.
it's very personal. It would really depend on what people are holding in that existing tax-free savings account before I would know either way whether it's
Yeah.
worthwhile to do it. But it could be. It could be.
I think one thing that's worth touching on now is what might be obvious to the three of us is that this strategy is not applicable for investment into a registered account. So you can't
Right.
use the Smith maneuver to invest funds into an RRSP. It's got to be
That's
a
right.
non-registered
Or a
account.
tax-free savings account.
If you want to go further down the rabbit hole of what Tracey and Robert are saying, you could consider paying withholding tax and smashing your RRSP, but I won't go there.
Some people have asked that question too.
Yeah.
That one tends not to, the math doesn't tend to work quite as well for that one. At least with the tax-free savings account, when you take it out, you don't get a big tax hit, but RSPs, that tends to be a pretty big tax hit right off the bat. So
Yeah,
that's
one of
worth
the things-
exploring because that's an individual kind of answer, I would say.
Yeah,
And one of the things-
and then I've got a question here from Jasmine. Thanks for coming today, Jasmine. I see she's on the phone at the moment. What's the line of credit balance at the end of your example? When the debt's fully converted, then the line of credit is maxed out. It wouldn't necessarily be 80% of the originally appraised value of the property because of the HELOC rules. There's a federal regulation that limits the maximum available credit of a home equity line of credit to be 65% of the originally appraised value of the home. So you might have a $500,000 mortgage on a $650,000 home, but the maximum balance available on the HELOC over time would be about $426,000.
Yeah, so this is a debt conversion strategy, but in effect, with the 65% HELOC rule, we are actually paying down our debt from an absolute standpoint. Like you said, from $500,000 to less than that by the time conversion is achieved. You might have the exact same amount if your mortgage was less than 65% loan to value to begin with. But this is what the SMCPs can look at. They can run through the calculator scenarios and say, here's what it looks like to start. Here's what it looks like at the finish.
Jamie, I see a question here about, and Tracey already answered it. I'll just add to it. You talk about.
I'm actually adding to it in the chat right now too.
Yeah, the impact to your credit rating. That's
Okay.
the product of, you may have a sparkling credit history and credit score, which may be impacted. But it is true that at times, if we're dealing with a maxed out HELOC, because we're fully implementing the Smith Maneuver, is that it may affect your score for the simple fact that we're at maximum utilization of a credit facility, but at least we're using it for all the right purposes, and that we're not seeing a maxed out personal line of credit. We're not seeing a car payment with a giant installment. What I can say anecdotally is that those clients of mine who are investors over and above their principal residence, you'll see that they'll have not as good a credit score as they had at the beginning of their real estate investment journey, for the simple fact that they're utilizing a lot of credit, but they're utilizing the right kind of credit to accrete assets.
There we go.
There's a question here from Bao. With your cash flow down scenario example, can I still write off the mortgage interest on the rental on top of the interest on the HELOC? And the answer is yes.
Yes.
When you got a mortgage to buy that rental property, you borrowed with the reasonable expectation of generating income from that business, your rental property, and you can deduct the interest on that mortgage. So now you're deducting the interest on the mortgage that's on the rental property and on the HELOC that's on your principal residence. And would the $3,000 that goes towards the primary home mortgage be counted as income, Tracey?
Sorry, that's counted as income? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and there's actually fees you can write off that are associated with that as well. And that there are lots of deductions that I don't even think the calculator, because the calculator would, I think, be overwhelmed by it. But there's lots of extra deductions that can come into play that will actually augment the tax savings as well, in addition to that. But that's what we tend to do. We tend to use that, run everything through as fast as possible, because that line of credit can service itself.
There's the normal deductions of holding the rental property in a sole proprietorship anyway.
Yeah, exactly. That's an easier way to answer that question than I did.
Well,
I was reading the new reading the new messages. Let's see, team approach, the teams. Yes, there you go. So Damien just said it. It is a team approach. So investment, this is kind of the investment fees or advisory fees related to running non-registered accounts or helping people with their non-registered accounts. Those are tax deductible too. So in many cases, you get those as tax deductions, and they're treated the exact same way as the interest, as a carrying charge on your income tax return. And most of the eligible investments have this dividend tax credit as well. So there's lots of good benefits.
and to flesh that out, there is no additional incremental cost to working with a Smith Manoeuvre accredited professional. We don't
No.
charge extra for helping you implement the strategy per se. For those of you who haven't worked with a mortgage broker before, independent, provincially licensed, similar to Tracey. In almost all cases, there is no cost to you for working with a mortgage broker. Brokers are paid a fee or commission by the lender with which we match you up. And that fee is not deducted from or connected to your mortgage in any way. So the only cost of actually implementing the Smith Maneuver from a mortgage perspective is the cost of the refinancing itself. The penalty is an important consideration, but a lot of that, like Rob alluded to, can be neutralized by the strategy itself. There's the appraisal, which in my particular case, I always cover. then there would be the legal or notarial fees involved in refinancing a house for those of you who have refinanced in the past.
And there's nothing above and beyond what we do. It would just
No.
be
Yeah, there's no extra cost in working
No.
with an accredited professional.
not at
Well,
all.
then who pays me?
It's a good question, Rob. There you go. Well, and this conversation can continue as well, not necessarily today in this format, but we're going to have the recording just in case there's segments of this that people would like to be able to see again down the road. So we'll have that available. Toma and I will share information and resources as well via email. We also do it kind of in our newsletters and social media and that sort of thing, but do reach out. We're going to send, Scott just asked if we can get a copy of the recording. Everybody who registered, whether they attended or not, will get a copy of this recording. Whether you want it or not, it'll come your way to an inbox near you. So we'll do that anyhow, but there's lots of other great resources available. Just reach out to, like if it's Toma that you know, or if it's me that you know, reach out to us. We talk to Rob regularly. So whenever there's new resources available, we're happy to share them.
And
So
just to round things out, I'll just be spontaneous here. I happen to have a little battery. It's not here, it's at the office, but I've got a battery of the actual books available still that I have not yet given out. And what I'll say to those folks who attended the webinar live today, thank you for taking the time out of your schedule. We had challenges scheduling it ourselves. Those of you who are interested in getting a copy of the book who attended the webinar live, please respond to the emails that have been coming your way through Eventbrite or through Tracey, just with your name and your mailing address. We're not gonna stalk you or anything like that. But what I will do is mail you a copy of the book gratis.
Awesome. That's a good offer. Thanks, Toma. I might have a couple left too, so I might be able to add to that inventory.
Now you're talking.
There we go.
Reward the folks who took the time.
Exactly. So thank you all for joining us today. It's 11:37. So Jeff is paying you, Rob.
All right. Thanks, Jeff.
There you go. Thank you all for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your day and week, and watch your inboxes for the video recording. And we'll have some other helpful little tips and resources and links in there too. So thank you for coming today. I'm going to stop the recording.
Thanks for